Now that we've taken a look at how we can achieve better looks on our photographs, let's take a look at a couple of ways where we can start to achieve a little bit better of a finishing technique if, say, we were going to present these to a client or if we were just going to display them on the web, a nice creative way to finish off our photographs. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close this image up, select Don't Save. I'm going to go back into the bridge, and this time I'm going to go back to our pinkflower.jpg here. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a couple of border effects on this image here. So I'm going to move this back into the center just a little bit. And what we're going to do is the first thing we're going to do is duplicate this layer by using Command or Control J on our keyboard. And then I'm going to create a layer directly beneath this layer by command clicking or control clicking the new layer icon. That's going to create a layer directly below the current layer that you're working on. And then for this particular image, I'm just going to fill this with black. So I'm going to switch my foreground and background colors by hitting the X key on my keyboard, and then I'll fill that with black using Option Delete or Alt Backspace. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the top flower image here. I'm going to go up and I'm going to make a selection just inside all the edges here with my rectangular marquee tool, just like so. Now this can be as big or as small as you want it, depending on how big you want your border to be. And then I'm going to come down here and I can either click on the quick mask icon, or I can simply hit the Q key on my keyboard and I'll jump into quick mask mode. And you'll notice that you're in quick mask mode because you'll have this nice light red overlay over the edges of your image. Now what we're going to do is we're going to run a filter on this quick mask. So we're going to come up here to the filter menu. We're going to choose brush strokes, and the first thing we're going to do is select spatter. So inside the spatter dialog box, what we're going to see here is you'll notice this is the actual kind of border we're going to be creating, this kind of rough edged border. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to increase the spray radius here, and I'll decrease the smoothness a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and click OK. So that gives us a little bit of that kind of rough edge that we're looking for, but we're also going to run another filter. We're going to come back up to the filter menu. This time we're going to choose brush strokes again, and we're going to select sprayed strokes. This time we're going to increase the stroke length quite a bit, and we're also going to increase the spray radius quite a bit as well. And then once we get these tweaked exactly like we want them, in this case I'm going to have a spray radius of 16 and a stroke length of 20. Then you can also change the direction of these if you wanted to. I'm going to actually leave these at left diagonal, and then I'll go ahead and click OK. And once I do that, you're not going to see a big change here because we've still got that quick mask mode enabled. In order to get out of that, go ahead and hit the Q key again on your keyboard. That's just going to load that quick mask as an active selection. And then all you have to do is add this as a layer mask. So go ahead and click the Add Layer Mask button, and you see there we've got that nice, interesting, rough, almost chalk-like border all the way around the photograph. So that's just a really great and interesting way to kind of finish off these photos. So that's method number one for adding a photographic border. Let's take a look at some of the others that we've got here. I'm going to go ahead and throw these two top layers away, and we're only going to be working with this background layer here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select the rectangular shape tool from the vector shape tools, and I'm going to come up here to the options bar, and I'm going to make sure that I have this middle icon selected where I'm going to be drawing a path rather than drawing a shape. So now that I have that selected, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a shape right around the inside of this flower photograph here. Now, you don't have to be precise with this. You can just draw out a path just any old way you want to inside of here. And what I'm going to do now is go over here into the Paths panel and make sure that it's all still right there. There's the path that I need. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back to the Layers panel. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new layer directly above my background layer. I'm going to make sure that my foreground color is set to the color that I want to add for this border. So for instance, if I wanted to change this color, let's go ahead and do so. Let's go ahead and change this maybe to a bright red color. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select my brush tool. I'm going to come up here in the brushes palette, and I'm going to select here this 100 pixel brush here, right here in the center. And I'm going to go ahead then and exit out of there. I'm going to come back to the paths portion of the layers panel, and I'm going to come down here to the bottom, and I'm going to select this little icon right here to stroke the path with the brush. And when I do that, you'll see there that I create this nice pathed border all the way around this photograph. And if I deselect that path, let me go back to the Paths panel, deselect that path, simply like that. I'll go back in. You see I've created that nice brush all the way across there. Now, I had my brush opacity turned down to 50%, so I only got 50% of the color all the way around that border. So if I want to do that again, I'll go ahead and throw that away. I'm going to create a new layer there. Go back to the paths palette this time. I'll choose that work path again. This time I'm going to come over here to the little flyout menu on the side of this paths portion of the layers panel. I'm going to select stroke path. Now when I do that, I get this little option here, which is very useful. I'm going to select that I want to stroke the path with the brush, but I'm also going to check this little box right here that says simulate pressure. What that's going to do is simulate pressure as if I was using a Wacom tablet or something and drawing all the way around the edges of this. It's going to simulate that pressure to give me more of a varied looking border all the way around the edges. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. It's going to then stroke the path with that border. I'll go ahead then and I'll deselect that path and go back into the regular layers panel here. And so there's my nice varied border all the way around the edges of that. And it's just a very nice way to finish off your photographs. So now after we've created this border, we're going to take a look at one more type of border that you can create, which is very popular nowadays. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw this away. And then we're going to simply duplicate this layer by using Command or Control J to duplicate that layer again. This time I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the background layer. I'm going to switch my foreground colors to black and white by hitting the D key on my keyboard. And I'm also going to switch to the Move tool just to get that brush preview out of my way. So you see a lot of times people mount their photographs on either a black or white background, and then they have some sort of text at the bottom. This technique is used a lot in fine art photography. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you a really quick and easy way to simulate this here inside of Photoshop. So I'm going to come up here to the image menu and I'm going to choose canvas size. Or you could simply hit Command Option C on the Mac or Control Alt C on the PC to bring up this dialog box. And then I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to switch this to percentages instead of pixels or inches or anything like that. I'm also going to turn on the relative box here and I'm going to say increase the width of this image by 10%. I'll say increase the height of this image by 5%, and I'm going to say the canvas color, the background should be white for this particular image. Go ahead and click OK. When I do that, here you see we get this nice little mounded border all the way around the image, but this is not even the best way to do this. If you really want my opinion, the best way is the way that allows you to do this visually. So that's what we're going to do in the second portion of this. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to throw this top layer away for now. And what we're going to do is we're going to extend the canvas of this image simply by using the crop tool. Now the crop tool is something that a lot of people use for taking portions of an image away, but in this case we're going to use it to add portions to this image. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to switch to the crop tool by hitting the C key on my keyboard. Once I do that, I'm just going to make a selection with the crop tool all the way around the image like so. Now when you select all of the image like that, you're going to notice that the crop tool stops at all edges there, not allowing you to go outside of it. But once you release the crop tool, after making the selection, now you have the ability to go back to the handles, and I'm going to hold down the Option key while I do this just to make sure that it extends evenly on both sides. And I'm just going to drag outward like this. And I'm going to do the same for the top, just to drag outward like that. But I'm also going to add more space at the bottom. So I'm just going to drag that without holding the Option or Alt key, just like that. And I'm going to then hit Enter to commit to those changes. And if I zoom out just a little bit, you see we created a nice frame all the way around this image. And then you'll see this all the time in fine art photography. I'm going to grab the Type tool this time by selecting the T key on my keyboard. I'm going to come up here into the Fonts menu, and I'm going to select a font that's called Trojan Pro. So inside of this, by the way, this is a font that ships with Photoshop CS3, so you should have this in your Fonts menu. So we're going to find Trojan Pro from this list here, and with Trojan Pro selected, we are going to make sure that the color is set to black. And I'll even decrease the size here because we really don't want it to be that big. And I'm just going to type out Justin Seeley Photography, like so. And you'll notice that you see this all the time in photography, people writing their name at the bottom like this. This is the font that all of those pros use. Trust me, it's used all over the place. I'm going to shrink the size of this, and then I'm going to increase the spacing of the letters, or increase the tracking here with these letters. I'm going to hold down the Option key and the Command key on Mac. That would be the Alt and Control key on PC. And I'm just going to tap my right arrow keys to increase the spacing there. I'm going to select the Move tool, And then I'm just going to move this right into position right there in the center. And then to finish it off, I'll lower the opacity of this to about 60% simply by hitting the number 6 on my keyboard. That'll just give that a little bit more of a faded effect. And that's how you would create these simulated fine art prints here inside of Photoshop CS3. So after viewing this chapter, you should have a greater understanding of exactly how to create and manipulate these nice creative effects on all of your digital photographs, and also how to finish them off by creating some wonderful border effects to create some stunning, eye-popping prints.